Hello everyone, welcome to an analysis of dance, where we discuss the movements and debuts of the Billboard Hot Dance charts in immaculate detail, with in-depth reviews of each debut each week. This week is bad. Really bad. I mean, I get that this is not going to be a thing every single week. It's not guaranteed that the weeks are going to be perfect. I mean, this is the mainstream dance scene after all, especially with TikTok dominating. But here, yeah, there's nothing here that I'm looking forward to covering. The majority of these debuts suck, and with the stuff that's moving, yeah, this was just a straight up bad week. So let's get straight into it with the top 10, where Miles on It by Marshmello and Kane Brown somehow held at number 1. Now, this one doesn't surprise me, considering the recurrency probably didn't knock it that far down. Even with SZA's album Impact, it wasn't going to get knocked down that far enough to actually lose to number 1. But unfortunately, it just looks like it's going to stick for a while, at least until the new shift rule that's coming in a couple of weeks, so I'm at least excited for that. But that also takes us to Holiday Road by Kesha at number 2. Look, it hit the Hot 100 and it's by far Kesha's highest charting song. It's probably going to be gone next week, considering it's only here because of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day streaming numbers. But besides that, yeah, I could take it or leave it with this one. And really, considering it's going away, I'm not exactly complaining either. And that likely means that Apple by Charlie XCX is going to rebound back up from number 3, even though it's absolutely going to collapse on radio in the near future, and the streaming is just not good. I'm kind of worried about this one moving forward. And that's especially not good because the real song that could challenge for the number 1 is Forever Young by David Guetta, Alphaville, and Ava Max at number 4. Now this one is entirely because of radio and industry support, because seriously, the fact that this still hasn't hit the dance streaming charts, which is a weak chart that doesn't matter, yeah, that's kind of really revealing that no one actually wants to listen to this. And considering this is primarily boosted off of radio and nothing else, yeah, can we just end that real quick, please? It's not good at all. But sadly, the game wasn't too surprising, considering the top 10 is kind of in a weak state right now, and no more is that more obvious than Guess by Charlie XCX featuring Billie Eilish at number 5, which is only because of streaming, and that's starting to fall back in record time, although it is at least doing better than 360 by Charlie XCX down to number 6, where this has got a ton of losses across the board. Although it is holding decently steady in radio, it's just probably not going to stick around much longer. But what's looking set to be a real challenger for the top 5 soon, yeah, it's somehow The Days Notion remix by Crystal at number 7, where this one is surging across the board, especially on streaming, and considering it just recently hit the US Spotify Top 200 and is continuing to gain up at a record pace, yeah, this is actually going to stick around. The fact that this is actually going to have a Hot 100 chance is just insane to me. The sort of thing that never would blow up in any other year, but somehow is managing to do so now, and it's a great song too. Beneath it is Sao Paulo by The Weeknd and Anita, actually up to number 8, but really this is only because of the streaming being at least somewhat stable, and it does have a minor bit of radio, but not really enough to matter. Hell, I was also surprised that Move by Adam Port and Strife featuring Malachi rebounded up to number 9, considering that it doesn't have radio and streaming is starting to exit out pretty naturally, but that's mainly because of the big collapse of Sympathy is a Knife by Charlie XCX featuring Ariana Grande at number 10. Now look, with Holiday Road leaving next week, I don't expect this to fall off that quickly, but considering that the streaming is really underperforming for an Ariana Grande collab, it's kind of revealing as well that this isn't really one of the more liked remixes off of Brat's remix album, and yeah, I can agree, let's move on. But on the topic of bizarre collapses, our falls and fall-offs, where for some reason outside of the majority of the debuts last week, the big one is Kisses by Bless and Cameron Watson featuring BB Close, which somehow managed to exit from 34 last week despite not even falling victim to recurrent rules. I mean, it charted later than I think anyone expected, but seriously, that's a song that deserved way better on this chart. It's probably going to end up getting caught between years at best. Thankfully though, we only had 3 falls this week, and outside of Home Sweet Home by G-Dragon featuring Taeyang and Daesung thankfully continuing to plummet down to 46, the other 2 are songs I like quite a bit. I mean, at least Pasaporte by Raul Alejandro and Mr. Nice Guy falling to 24 is not exactly all that surprising, and it's probably going to end up making the year unlisted at this rate, so I'm not exactly upset about it. But the more alarming case is Swimming by Flawed Mangoes at 37. Again, I'm just more amazed that this actually stuck around as long as it did, and even if it's probably going to end up missing the year enlist, it did have a really good run. It could make the rank down when that comes along in 2025. Stay tuned for that. Anyways, on to our jumps and comebacks, where it's revealing that the only comeback is Funk Universo by IROX at 49, kind of indicative indicative of the debuts this week, but different conversation. Hell, our jumps were just as divisive to me on a load of levels. Yes, I'm not surprised that DJ Play a Christmas Song by Cher and Kelly Clarkson is up to 33, although the fact that a Christmas song like this, especially one that charted on the Hot 100 last year, its remix is just not supported at all on streaming, yeah, that's kind of revealing there. Or that Sigma Boy by Betsy and Maria Yankovskaya is up to 15. Unfortunately, this is blowing up pretty big on TikTok, and really this is the sort of track that's gotten worse with repeat listens. It's outright awful, and it gets worse every time I think about it. Hell, on the topic of songs that should not be in the top 20, Como La Flor by Playing Skills, Nay Natasha, and Dior is up to 17. And look, it's entirely because of Latin airplay supporting this, but the streaming is so bad on this that I'm honestly baffled how the hell this made the top 20. Have you looked at the numbers on Spotify? How does it even pass 2 million? And it came out months ago. Hell, that also applies to the random as hell jumps for Dyson Roll by Odatario 38, Alter Ego by Deutsche and JT at 39, and even The Machine by Reed Wonder featuring Aurora Olivas up to 40. Seriously, why are these actually sticking around now? At least in the first two cases, they're at least going to get caught between years, but seriously, why the hell are they still here? But thankfully, the last three jumps kind of make up for all of them because there's some really promising signs going into 2025. I mean, the big one is Forever by Hugo and Diplo featuring Malou and Yuna up to 31. Again, it's indicative of Diplo somehow managing to have a song stick every single year. He's at least made every single year-end list in terms of songs, and with this one actually sticking around, yeah, that streak is going to continue, thank God. But what shocked me was the massive surge of both of BB No Money songs, with 2 surging up to 19, and even It Boy up to 34. I guess he's getting a bit of natural momentum out of nowhere, but considering there's no remix or even an album coming with these songs on it, I'm honestly shocked that both of these were actually able to gain that much at all. In fact, 2 might actually make a run for the year-end list at the rate it's going, and that's really promising. It's really growing on me. Oh, but how I wish that the debuts could really match that level of quality. Strap in, folks, when 2 of them are Brazilian Phonk songs and the third is a remix of a Bad Bunny song by Tiesto, it's not looking good at all. Starting off with number 50, Bad Parenting Funk by DJ CEREJASS and Sayfalse. So just my goddamn luck, we get more Brazilian Phonk songs charting, with this one being particularly baffling to me. I mean, aside from the title being fucking garbage, this guy has only got 3 releases that are original songs as of recording this, with 8 versions of this song in his top 10 on Spotify. Jeez, isn't this completely blatant at this point? Especially given it's yet another non-Brazilian producer dabbling in the trend, which continues to get more and more gross the more I think about it. And with this, yeah, this might be one of the worst ones that's charted in recent memory. This is fucking terrible. Seriously, this sounds lazy as all hell, where the guy uses an oldies pop vocal sample for the majority of the track that barely evolves or changes, before dabbling in the most obnoxious of mixing choices that you'd expect out of this genre, with the terrible percussion, the complete lack of melody, and no progression to speak of. And just when you think that this couldn't get worse, it's a 90-second fragment that's only made for TikTok, and with a song this bad, yeah, there's a reason that I'm extremely excited for the TikTok ban going forward, if only to prevent crap like this from charting. Skip this garbage. Number 45, Go Do It by Ziahfyah. On the topic of things that will likely be screwed over by the TikTok ban, geez, I can't wait until we get rid of this disposable Jersey Club crap, especially in this case where the song feels like yet another undercooked fragment. And look, the genre hasn't gotten a ton of representation on the hot dance charts compared to Brazilian Phonk, so I'm at least inclined to be a bit more generous here. And with Ziahfyah, I'm at least a little bit more generous here too, considering he's actually released a decent amount of music, and given his new material has not blown up at all in the same way that this track has, he doesn't really seem like one that's going to stick around that much at all. Even despite dropping a whole album with a lot of tracks that could honestly blow up on TikTok if that app wasn't being completely banned in a couple of weeks, thank God again. I mean, at least in this case, it's a little bit better than Bad Parenting Funk, mainly down to the fact that not only does it not have a stupid title like Bad Parenting Funk, it's also at least a little bit more interesting in terms of production. More than anything, you can tell that this guy actually has a knack for some decent melodies. There's a nice bit of symphonic atmosphere that actually worked for me here, especially with the choral vocals and the really dark mood that this track creates. But then comes the obnoxiously quiet Jersey Club beat and the really bad vocal integration, and my god, I just lost interest in this in record time. It's the exact kind of Jersey Club that eats this fucking app alive, and the more that I hear it, the more it gets more annoying for me, because there was potential for this to be genuinely good, but as it is, it's an undercooked fragment that's not particularly good either. Although given the standards of this week, it's at least probably the most passable thing here. Not saying much though. Number 44, Funk Infernal by DYGO and Mango. The alternative is this, I'll take more disposable Jersey Club in a heartbeat, because we have yet another Brazilian Phonk song from an artist that has 5 versions of the same song in the top 10 and blah blah blah. I don't care. Yes, there's a bit more menace in The Sims. It does remind me a lot of an old SNES style villain theme. There's at least a little bit more appeal there. But the groove here just completely dies off when that horrible smack sound of Brazilian Phonk comes in. I mean, seriously, you couldn't even give us at least halfway decent house beat to work off. Really, you had to ruin it with the touches that everyone dislikes about this genre, especially considering you have no respect for the original culture you're taking from. Again, why are we doing this? I mean, for God's sake, Brazilian Danger Phonk by Red Devil and Synthman at least had something going for it. It used the same length for more of a harder hitting sound that at least had some genuine groove behind it, and more importantly, it didn't ruin the sound of this genre with the terrible production choices that you'd usually expect out of it nowadays. So yeah, this sounds disposable and generic for this genre, and considering how much I usually do not like Brazilian Phonk at all, yeah, that's kind of telling there. Skip this one too. And finally, number 35, Una Velita by Tiesto. Finally, we end with something that might actually be just as annoying to me. I mean, even as someone who liked the original Una Velita by Bad Bunny, I was absolutely drained this considering the horrible year that Tiesto has had. But hey, at least Tantalizing with Soki Siren kinda grew on me, even if it is gentrified Afro House. I was at least hoping this would be okay, and yeah, this really did not work for me either. I mean, right off the bat, I have an issue with this remix existing at all. If you know the context of the original track, it was written as a sort of protest song from Bad Bunny, especially considering the mistreatment of his island of Puerto Rico, and considering he actually lives there. There was a lot of detail to that track that I found really engaging for me. So obviously the best idea is to get Tiesto, a Dutch producer, to remix it, and considering he does not live in Puerto Rico whatsoever, and his interest in the island seems very surface level at best, yeah, it was really gross to me. I mean, at least in this case, Tiesto is at least trying to do something good with this, considering all the proceeds of this song are going towards supporting Puerto Rico and its people. It's at least not as gross as when he ventured into Afro House, or indeed the number of Brazilian Phonk songs that do not remotely care about the original culture they're stealing from, but it still feels really gross in general for me, and it doesn't help that the song is produced like absolute shit. The choral vocals from the original are mixed way too far into the mix alongside the synths, the percussion is painfully loud and dry to the point where it clips the mix, and the drops have absolutely nothing different from the verses to really make them stand out at all. It's just lazy as all hell. And considering the emotional power that the original track had, and the fact that there's actually some genuine content that could have been explored in this remix and made it into more of a Puerto Rican style dance track, the fact that it turned out this disposable and forgettable, yeah, that's almost just as bad. I mean, at least it's better than the Brazilian Phonk songs that charted this week, but that's a low fucking bar. This is not good either. Skip it. And that was our week. Jesus Christ, this sucked to the point where I'm somehow giving Go Do It by Ziahfyah the best of the week. Look, it's not a good song at all, and really I can't wait for TikTok to kill off these sort of tracks, but for the time being I'll at least take some disposable Jersey Club over the absolute garbage we got alongside it this week. But for the worst though, dear God, there were options, but I'm thinking Bad Parenting Funk by DJ CEREJASS and Sayfalse for being absolutely god-awful across the board. One of the worst songs from this scene, and that's really saying something considering how negative I've been towards it recently, and I hope to God this flops off in record time. It's fucking terrible. Next week, well, at least things could get a little bit more interesting as the Christmas music leaves and the top 10 experiences a decent shake-up, and I hope to God that the debuts are at least a little better than this. Come on, we can do way better. But yeah, that's all for this episode of an analysis of dance. See you next time.